Okay, so every year I redo 3 videos. My favorite series, favorite standalones, and favorite authors. This year, I've already recorded my favorite series and favorite authors because those 2 videos, a lot has changed in the last year, which is amazing because that means that I've read new favorites. Favorite standalones though, this video right here, it's not that different. I guess I just haven't really been focusing on standalones this year. Either way, it's fairly similar to last year, so I'm gonna keep this one brief, whereas the other 2, I had a lot to say, even though you haven't seen favorite authors yet. I have 6 on this list. I've been doing top 5 for the others, but I have 6. Tied in the number 5 spot are going to be The Outsiders and On the Fence, which are 2 really different books. I went back and forth about On the Fence, if it belonged on this list or not. I haven't had it in the list in previous years, I don't think, but I think it deserves to be here. This is sort of like a book that I've loved for years, and I don't know if it would be on my top list had I read it more recently, but I still think it deserves to be on the list because I still love it so much. So On the Fence is a young adult contemporary, romantic contemporary. Super not the type of thing that I normally love this much, but it dealt in my favorite trope, friends to lovers, and it also has the best family dynamic, one of the best family dynamics that I've read. It's about a girl who has, I think, 5 brothers, and they're a very close, tight-knit family. She lost her mom, and she's also dealing with, like, she's always been the sportsy tomboy, and then she gets a job where she has to dress nice, and she meets girls that she works with, and for the first time she has girlfriends, and it's just she's kind of dealing with an identity crisis as she's also dealing with grief of like, maybe I like also dressing nice and being friends with girls, but I also love dressing down and playing sports and being close with all my brothers. And she kind of takes on 2 personalities and doesn't really realize that they can mesh well together. And I loved this book because it reflected my life a lot. I was a huge tomboy. I loved sports and getting dirty and all that. And I didn't like wearing makeup or dressing up or anything. And once I got a little bit older and realized, actually, it's okay for me to like both, I kind of dealt with an identity crisis for a while, trying to figure out how to cope with that because I felt like I was changing who I was, but I wasn't. And this character is facing that. So it was very relatable for me. But then it also has this amazing family dynamic and this really cute friends to lovers romance. So it was just like the perfect book. And I've reread it fairly recently and I still loved it so much. So I don't know. I think it deserves to be here. The Outsiders, you probably know about this one a little bit better. This is about a boy who also has an interesting family dynamic. He's actually being raised by his older brother, and he's living with 2 of his older brothers. And then so their area has the greasers and the socias. I think that's the term that they used. And it's kind of like the rough around the edges crowd and then the uppity rich snobs. And the whole story kicks off when he and his friend start hanging out with a couple of soc girls, and then it doesn't go well, and I don't think I should say anything else, actually. It's a really short book with kind of a chaotic storyline, but the point of the book is the characters, and the characters are done so well, and the love and relationship is done so well, and it's heartwarming and heartbreaking, and if you haven't read it yet, you really just should. Next on my list, hey, you're blocking it. Next on my list is Rebecca. So Rebecca is a classic thriller. Think domestic thriller, even though some people have it labeled as a mystery. I wouldn't recommend thinking of it that way. This is about a girl who meets a guy who and then develops an unhealthy obsession for him. Not love, obsession. And then they quickly get married, she gets whisked off to his manor, and once she's there, she realizes that his late wife, there's a sort of weird obsession going on with all the people that live in this manor about his late wife, and also her death maybe didn't go down quite the way it's said. This is one of those books where every character is pretty messed up, and the story is ridiculous, but so exciting to follow. And I just really enjoy thrillers. I love domestic thrillers where pretty much everybody is not quite right. And this is one of those, and I loved this book. Next book on this list is Pride and Prejudice, a classic romance. This is one that I went into fully expecting not to enjoy all that much, but I loved it. It has, it has characters that are so flawed and so full of themselves. And a really cute romance that can't be accomplished without so much character growth. And there's a lot of familial dynamics in this. There's a lot of side characters that are terrible. There's just so many things that happen throughout this book that are all intricate to bring the couple together, but are so funny and deep. And I loved this book. I've read it twice, and I would love to reread it again very soon. Next is And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. This book follows a grandpa who has dementia and is losing himself within that. It also follows his son and his grandson as they are a part of this situation. The book is extremely short. I already filmed my next video that's going up after this one, my favorite authors, so I don't want to be too repetitive because I've already talked about this book a lot. But I'll go ahead and repeat myself anyway. I was reading this book, I was listening to this book on audiobook the first time I read it, and I had to rewind and reread the ending of this book 3 separate times because I was crying so loudly that I couldn't hear the ending over my sobs. It is a beautiful story. It is a story that meant a lot to me. I don't really want to say too much, but as someone who has someone very, 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 very close to me who has dementia, I felt like my family was seen and understood when I read this book. And I just really, really appreciated that. Bachman also just has a writing that is unlike anybody else's, and he cuts right through my soul. And my number 1 favorite book of all time is Peter Pan. This is the edition that actually is annotated by J.M. Barrie. This is a book that I reread every year. I love it so much. It has a weird first chapter, so try to get through that one. But beyond that, I love it because Peter is not who you think he is if you've not read the book yet. He's pretty dark and a little runt. He's a brat, but he's a layered brat, and I love him. And I would really love, the next time I reread it, I would love to do a dedicated review to talk about how much I love it and why I love it so much. But I've kind of already mentioned this in a recent video, but I think that the story itself is whimsical and beautiful and has a lot of hidden depth within it, but the way the book ends makes me cry. I guess this will be mild spoilers, so if you don't want to hear anything about the ending, skip this part, jump to this timestamp, but not mild spoilers. This is going to be a proper spoiler. The fact that the Darlings, when they get their children back, take in all the children to their home because they all need families and they all need a home, and no one deserves not to have that. And as someone who feels very passionately about adoption, I love that. And I love that the whole time the kids were gone, the Darlings always kept their windows open. And the way it's worded in the book just gets me because, you know, as a parent, I'm always going to keep my windows open too. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful book that means a lot to me. And I will talk about, I will do a dedicated review for it someday. But it's a book that I can't really describe how much it means to me. And I appreciate all of you that have taken the time to read it because of me. Anyway, I'd love to chat with you more about any of these books. Also, feel free to tell me what your favorite standalones are. I feel like this list is pretty unsafe. Any of these books that I talked about, I feel like there's a bunch more that I could really swap in or out because I have a lot of favorite standalones. But these are the ones that, as I was looking at my shelves and as I was making up the list, these are the ones that stood out to me this time. But I do think that they could be swapped out pretty easily with some others, except for my top 2. Those will always stay. Not always. I really hope that I continue, I said this in all my videos, I really hope that I continue to read amazing books. And that this list will constantly be changing. But my top 2, I know, are solidly in my top 2 place as of right now, and everything else, you know, it could be there, it could be something else. But I'd love to keep chatting with you about any of these books. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.